You might have heard of tons of tall tales in American culture, such as Paul Bunyan, John Henry, Johnny Appleseed, and Pecos Bill. These are all tall tales that bring out the American spirit of its younger days, making great entertainment for all and teaching us life lessons. But what happens when one of those tall tales ends up being real? Well, you could say Jack Fasig of Lancaster County ended up being the real one. His real name being John, he was born on March 18, 1894, in Manheim, Pennsylvania. When hitting adulthood, he reached about 7 feet tall. But when he was 16, he was called a physical marvel by the Lancaster Intelligencer, as well as said to be one of the strongest boys in the world by national magazines. Some would even say that he put off an odor that would make a bull elephant faint. But most would call him a gentle giant due to his kind nature. Eventually moving to New York and graduating high school there in Newark, eventually he became a boxer, gaining the name Man Mountain. Being 7 foot tall and almost 300 pounds of all muscle, but he was more of an entertainer than a boxer and never took the sport seriously. It was said that if he did, he had a chance of being the world champion in the heavyweight division. Instead, he would rather have fun and drink. When carnivals would come to town, he thought it would be amusing to always challenge the strongman. And in every challenge he had with them, he would always win, never losing once, usually having the prize to be around $50 to $100. Eventually, he moved back to Manheim with his father at some point, but would go visit his mother, who would make him an extremely huge breakfast. That breakfast included a loaf of bread, a dozen eggs, and a whole pound of bacon. While in Manheim, he still liked to do physical feats constantly, like carrying 100-pound bags of feed on his shoulders for miles. Some even have witnessed him pulling cars out of ditches. There actually is one particular story that I heard about Jack Fasig and moving cars. He was walking around the town one day and a car was stuck in a ditch. The man in the car came up to him and said, "Hey, I'll give you some money if you move my car out of this ditch." So he did, and the guy decided to not pay him. So Jack went back up to the front of the car, picked up the car, and put it back in the ditch and walked away. When he got older, he worked in the Manheim asbestos factory for just a little while, lifting 200-pound drums by himself into a truck, but decided eventually that he was doing too much work for the company and quit, withdrawing most of his money to then go buy clothes, since he was tired of people thinking that he was a bum, and bought nicer clothes and a cane along with other high-class items. Eventually, the paper caught an eye and called him Diamond Jack. One tall tale of Jack Fasig was that one of the bridges went out in the town, and he laid down to fix the path of the bridge with his body. A train full of people then went over his back, never to derail, safely bringing people to their destination. The only thing Jack had to say when getting off the tracks was, "But gee, that tickled." Another tall tale comes from Petersburg, near the area where a woman's car broke down and he pushed her car all the way to Manheim, which was around 5 miles. With his kindness, there were still people who were afraid of him, not only for his size but his drinking habits, but he also had exotic fighting dogs that had a real mean look, and he trained fighting cocks along with only ever really living alone in small shacks and a home. Well, his father lived with him in those shacks along with his animals. One day, the dogs decided to turn on his father. Jack's father went outside, and when it happened, Jack started hearing the fighting and ran outside to tear down a tree limb and start swinging at the dogs to stop them from tearing up his father. They stopped, but it led Jack to having to take his father to the hospital, where his father died of blood loss. There were even times where parents would even tell their children if they were out of line, they would call Jack to come and get them. But Jack wasn't only known for his muscles. He was also known to have the brains to come along with his physical traits. He was top of his class and known to be able to recite Shakespeare. He was even able to say the whole Gettysburg Address by heart. He also learned how to speak fluent Pennsylvania Dutch to talk to Amish. Most of all, he was known for his big heart, helping people in need constantly. One day, Jack saw a few Amish men and women unloading a wagon of grain. Each Amish man would carry a 125-pound bag of grain to the nearby mill, and the two women with them there would share a heavy bag to lift. Jack thought that women shouldn't do work like that, so he took it into his own hands and grabbed the sack from the two women, balancing it on his head and proceeding to put a sack under each arm to deliver to the mill. The story says that the Amish who saw this couldn't believe their eyes, even impressing the leader of the group to say, "Dot man is wonderful strong." Eventually, Jack died in the 1950s at the age of 57 due to a heart attack medically. But most people would tell you that it was from his drinking habits. But either way, this man lived a bigger life than himself. Being the Paul Bunyan of Lancaster, and his legend still goes on today, stories are told by those living in Manheim, and even books were written about him, telling of his extraordinary feats and tales. And Jack's legend will go on for years to come. Well, I hope you liked the tall tale of Jack Fasig, and if you haven't yet, click subscribe. And if you like this video, give it a like, and hit the notification button if you want to see videos when I post them. And the next one is coming really soon, so I'll see you then.